Hi, Aaron. Yes, we've got Dr. Susan Wilson online, Joycelyn Burgo, Noel Stepp online. In addition, we also have Sean Mallory and Steve Thompson online.
Great, thank you very much. Yep, we're good. All right, we're gonna call this meeting to order. And so Teresa, can you take the roll, please?
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo. Mr.
Here.
Gordon. Thank you. Mr. Gordon Cook.
Here.
Mr. Bob Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Michael Lazio.
Here.
Ms. Lori Lemunion. Dr. Yummy Pandolfi. Ms. Marcy Gregg. Here. Gregg, I'm sorry. Ms. Noel Stepp.
Here.
Ms. Rita Weiss. Here. Dr. Susan Wilson. Ms. Michelle Whitehall. Chloe, did you say Dr. Wilson was on the line?
Yes, Teresa, Dr. Wilson's on the line, and both Dr. Yummy Pandolfi just joined and Michelle Wyckoff just joined as well as you were going through the roll call.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't know what happened to our flag, but can we stand and we will recite the pledge and we'll have a short invocation as well. So it was back there. Well, imagine it. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So our invocation reading is from Psalm 32, verse 8. The Lord says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye upon you. And so if you want to pray with me, that's fine. That's exactly what we'd love you to do tonight. Lord, we pray for wisdom, pray for counsel to be released in our meeting and our gathering. In your name we pray. Thank you, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
By the way, this is Susan Wilson. I am here. I'm having trouble unmuting though.
Okay. All right, so next is the approval of the agenda. And so I guess along with that, Aaron, I should, so item 2.3, approve the agenda. To begin, we want to rearrange the agenda a bit for the sake of those online to ensure we have full participation. We're going to move new business up and we will get both visitor and trustee comments afterwards. With that change in mind, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? I'll second it. Okay, moved and seconded. Approval of the consent agenda.
You need to vote.
Oh, sorry.
Well, sorry, it just was clarification. It's just.
So you can call the.
Yeah, but this is for the approval of the agenda itself. We haven't got to the consent agenda. Now call it roll. Okay.
Okay, let's go.
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo.
Aye.
Mr. Gordon Cook.
Aye.
Bob Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazio.
Aye.
Ms. Lori Lemunion. Dr. Yummy Pandolfi.
Aye.
Ms. Marcy Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Noel Stepp.
Aye.
Ms. Rita Weiss.
Aye.
Dr. Susan Wilson.
Aye.
Michelle Whitehall.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
So next is the approval of the minutes for the July 18th, 2023 meeting. So do I hear a motion to approve those?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, a second.
This is Noel, I second.
I think we can do it all in favor.
Yes. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Oh,
Okay.
let's wait for the, there's a delay online.
I'm Michelle, I.
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining? Okay,
Here.
Did we have a motion on the consent?
Not yet.
Certain things. I think what we had approval of the agenda.
Yeah.
I think we went to minutes.
Yeah, so the minutes are a part of the consent agenda.
Yes.
But this month we don't have any expenses. There's usually 2 or 3 things under consent agenda, but for this month it's only the minutes.
Good.
So,
yeah, there we go.
Got it.
So, preliminary business awards and recognitions. Were you gonna talk that, Aaron? Do you want to?
Oh, excellent. Well, this is great. Marcy Gregg has been appointed by the Jackson County Executive to fill the vacancy by retirement of Brent Schonelmeyer for a term that expires on June 30th, 2026. I had the pleasure of having coffee with Marcy, and I'm happy to have you on board. Look forward to working with you over the years. And then the other big news is Joyce and Tucker Burgo has been reappointed for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027. I've had many opportunities to have coffee and meals with Joycelyn, and we're happy to have you continuing on with us. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
thank you.
So move on to financial reports.
And so our financial reports will be included in the September board meeting. So there's nothing to report there.
So new business.
New business. Okay, so here we are. Up for review is the second readings of our revisions to board policies. Joycelyn, none of these policies have changed. The only addition we've given is to policy 342, our bereavement policy, where we've added additional information to give it context to. But the policy itself remains unchanged from our last board meeting. So what you will see there is how we allocate time to our bereavement policy. So we want to read through these resolutions and
Okay. We come up to the first one, and that's 7.2. This has to do with second reading on the performance and salary. I haven't pulled it up. Do you have the?
you want the act.
Yeah, trying to pull it.
Cody, can you pull up the actual attachment? There you go.
And basically, the Mid-Continent Public Library Board of Trustees requires that performance reviews of employees be conducted annually. This is exactly what we had read before. The revised policy for the motion is on the bottom. And it says the Mid-Continent Public Library Board of Trustees requires that performance reviews of employees be conducted annually. Employees will receive a performance review by a designated date each year. The performance review will be discussed by both the employee and manager. Performance evaluation forms will be retained in the employee's personnel's file. And as you recall, this change is made to reflect our current desired practices. So at this time, unless there's further discussion, we can go to a vote.
Yeah, a motion.
Is that a motion?
It's from the committee.
Makes a second. You have a second?
I can give a second, but as chair of the committee, I was a second.
We have a second?
No, we need a second. Second.
Okay, we have a second. Thank you. Teresa? I don't believe there's any further discussion.
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo,
Aye.
Mr. Gordon Cook,
All right.
Mr. Bob Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazio,
Aye.
Lauren London. Dr. Yumi Pandolfi,
Aye.
Ms. Noel Stapp,
Aye.
Rita Weese,
Aye.
Dr. Susan Wilson,
Aye.
Jill Wyckoff,
Aye.
Ms. Marcy,
Gray. Aye.
motion carries.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next policy, again, this was reviewed last month, and this has to do with a holiday pay. There it is. The revised policy is the holidays that would be included with this year include Juneteenth. And it states all the different holidays, including New Year's, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. And for these particular days, exempt and non-exempt full-time employees will be paid 8 hours each holiday. Non-exempt half-time employees will be paid 4 hours for each holiday. Non-exempt part-time employees are not paid for any holidays. Since the Cotton Public Library locations are also closed on Easter and closed at 5 p.m. on the day before Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve, Easter, Thanksgiving Eve, and New Year's Eve are not paid holidays for any staff. The motion recommended to the full board for adoption of these amended board policies for number 340 for holiday pay.
Second.
Thank you. If there's not any further discussion, we can go for a vote.
Well, I do have a comment. I guess, as I looked last time, as I said, I looked at different states. And the more I thought about this, I'm kind of questioning if we're going in the right direction by adding more paid days off and closed days. Doing something because, and I think this was stated, because the federal government does it. I don't know that that's justification for the library doing it. The fact that we're organized as a government entity, I don't think requires us to operate the business as a government entity. Like I said, say a handful of those holidays, businesses are closed. A lot of those holidays, businesses are open. And I wonder if the library shouldn't take that same approach. I mentioned the option of floating holidays. Maybe the branches, certain branches are closed on those holidays and certain branches are open. I think in light of, I guess, the progression of things, of the salary adjustments we made, when I look at our overall PTO policies, which I think are very generous, adding more paid time off adds to costs, and I don't know that it serves the community the way we should be. So it has nothing to do with the holiday. It has to do with the fact that we're going to add more paid time off, and maybe we need to relook. And that's where I am. I think sometimes when you get these situations, it gives you a chance to stand back and say, you know, are we taking the right approach as opposed to taking the approach that somebody else did? And this is a time where I would suggest we do that.
The issue before us is kind of an up or down vote at this point.
Understand that.
The last time the government issued a federal holiday was 30 years ago. So this is not something that is taken lightly. In light of that, I
suggest it was.
Excuse me?
It didn't suggest that it was.
I know, but I'm saying that's kind of a discussion as far as a policy for a whole policy for holidays and how we look at that. This is a second reading right now, and it requires either an up or down vote or a vote to withdraw. So unless there's a vote to withdraw, I would say go ahead with the vote and people can vote as they wish.
I just have a comment about procedure. Sure. I'm kind of used to first reading, second reading from past things I've done. This is a final vote, that's fine. I don't think it's to be amended, but certainly isn't. People have every right to speak on behalf of the proposal.
Yes.
So it's not that we go automatically from here's the motion, it's the second, and we vote on. So it's, right, people can talk.
I believe he was given the opportunity to speak.
Well,
Anybody else can have the opportunity to speak.
like I said, but I think, you know, and I'm not making a motion because I guess I can make a motion to table this in light of other discussion, but the up or down vote doesn't bother me. I'm just saying, from a board perspective and from an operating perspective, I think our PTO policies are very generous. And when I look at compensation, we have to look at compensation as a whole. We can't just look at each piece individually and say, this is whatever somebody else is doing, so we have to do it. Anytime you add PTO time or you know, any sort of benefit, whether it's health benefits, PTO, the bereavement, et cetera, those have to be taken in context of total compensation costs. And you know, as I illustrated last year, when I looked at the compensation costs from 2017 and what happened at Top L, what I discovered is not only is that two things: the headcount decreased, okay, but our compensation cost increased rather significantly. Okay, so and again, you made compensation adjustments, or the board approved compensation adjustments in this most recent budget to get closer to what I guess I understood to be, you know, a reasonable market rate for employees. So again, my counsel is simply that we have to look at the aggregate, and I think when I see situations like this presented or issues like this presented, because it gives us a chance to just pause and say, you know, what are we doing in the aggregate? And that's where I am. And I think we should look at things in the aggregate, not just a single day.
That's your prerogative to bring that up as a voting item, discussion item. But right now we're faced with a second reading. Also, this is kind of off topic, and I don't want to get into topics that aren't on the board, but you mentioned having more employees and higher paid employees, and that was a board design. That was a board request to have fewer but better paid employees. So that was intentional, not accidental. From history of
That's new information.
Yeah, that was intentional. If you look back in our board minutes, I can't point to it, but it was probably before your time. But that was an intentional.
So we were overstaffed.
No, we were not technically overstaffed. We looked at hiring more qualified individuals that can fulfill multiple roles and supplementing with some of our technology so that we can bring in less staff, but better compensated, higher skilled staff.
Well, I'll leave the balance to the current management. So,
Okay, given that, is there a motion to on this particular 7.3, 342?
Yeah, we got a first and a second.
This is Yummy. I have a comment whenever it's appropriate.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I'm hear what Gordon is saying, and I am inclined as is to vote no. But I do want to say that it's nothing to do with the holiday. I do think we have enough paid holidays. And in the future, what I would like to see is that we let the employees choose, that we put a cap on the number of paid holidays and then let the employees choose which ones that they want to have time off to take. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I might, I would just say that I was excited to see that this item was on the agenda. I think the federal government debates issues like this, adding holidays to the calendar as a nation. A lot of discussions are had at that level. A decision is made, and it sets a tone for the country and for other governmental organizations to maybe choose to take up and set the example or to choose not to. And I saw this as an opportunity for the library system to set an example for others, not to see how can we decide whether we have too many or not enough holidays, but to set the tone so that others might follow. It took a long time to get even school districts to recognize Martin Luther King Day as a holiday. And finally that happened. Now that is a recognition that I think is important. I agree that this is an important recognition too, and I would hope that the library board would embrace the opportunity to set the example in the community by adopting the holiday. So I favor it.
Any other comments? All right, well, thank you for everybody weighing in. Thank you for your comments. So, yeah,
I would just say I concur with the last comment.
okay. Thank you. Are there any other? Okay, since there's no other comments, then we have a motion to take a vote. Do this. Take roll call.
So we have a first and a second, I'll take the vote.
Okay.
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo? Yes. Mr. Gordon Cook?
No.
Mr. Bob Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazio?
Aye.
Ms. Lori Lemunion? Dr. Yami Pandolfi?
No.
Ms. Noel Step?
Abstain.
Ms. Rita Weesey?
Oh.
Dr. Susan Wilson?
Yes.
Ms. Michelle Wyckoff?
Yes.
Ms. Marcy Gregg?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Passed. Vote was.
Yes, the vote was 6 yeas, 3 nays, and 1 abstention.
Here's my question.
Yes.
Doesn't it have to have a majority of the board?
That's the majority of,
No, 6 is not a majority of 12.
it's the majority of 10.
Well, I said of the board, there are 12.
Yeah, I don't believe so, and I know there's some policies in there that has to, I don't know if that's the case on the policies, which is the point of the first and second reading, so we can check that.
Yeah, I would like to know that. I've been on a few other legislative bodies and all of them, it's a majority of the membership of a body.
I don't believe so, but I do think there are some in there, like hiring a director and things like that, has some budgets and things like that. I think there's a 2/3 majority, but it doesn't state anything about that policy. But if something's different, I would certainly let you know.
Speak louder.
Okay, if there's something different about that, I can certainly consult with Bill Moore. I don't believe he's not on the line. That's just my general off the top of my head.
So where do we stand right now with?
The motion carries.
Okay. All right.
All right, the next motion on the board is policy 342, excessive bereavement, as our director mentioned. The only addition to this is clarification and context for the policy, but the policy remains the same. I believe the policy is, yeah. It's hard to- Okay, the policy, so was that the part you read?
There's a copy. Diane, can you?
Thank you. Thank you. It's bereavement policy. Here it is. The policy will be replaced with the Mid-Compton Public Library Board of Trustees authorizes paid bereavement leave for full-time, half-time, and regular part-time employees. All employees are eligible to take bereavement leave when a family member passes away according to the schedule below. Bereavement pay is made available according to the categories below. First category is relationship, spouse or sole. And I believe these categories is what's added.
Yes.
Yes, for clarification. Spouse or sole domestic partner of an employee, child of an employee, natural adopted step or child currently placed in employee's home and or guardianship via court order, child of sole domestic partner of employees, parent of employee, natural adopted state or person acting in loco parentis when employee was minor, and pregnancy loss. The first category of paid leave allowance, full-time employees may use up to 120 hours for loss to be scheduled and used within the first 6 months following the loss. Half-time employees may use up to 60 hours per loss to be scheduled and used within the first 6 months following the loss. Part-time employees may use up to 45 hours per loss to be scheduled and used for 6 months following the loss. Now I put an S on the end of that month. That's a minor adjustment. Typo. Second category is relationship, grandparent, sibling, natural step, parent, in-law, parent of domestic partner, grandchild, natural step, grandchild of domestic partner, other family member who resides in the employee's household. Second, this is a lot to read. The second category is grandparent, sibling, natural step, parent-in-law, parent of domestic partner, grandchild, natural step, grandchild of domestic partner, other family member who resides in the employee's household. Second category of paid leave allowance is full-time employees may use up to 40 hours per loss to be scheduled and used within the first 30 days following the loss. Half-time employees may use up to 20 hours per loss to be scheduled and used within the first 30 days following the loss. Part-time employees may use up to 15 hours per loss to be scheduled and used within the first 30 days following the loss. Third category of relationship is aunt and or uncle, grandparent of spouse or domestic partner, sibling of spouse or domestic partner, and spouse of domestic partner, spouse or domestic partner of sibling. This third category, paid leave allowance, full-time employees may use 16 hours per loss to be scheduled and used in the first 30 days following the loss. Half-time employees may use up to 8 hours per loss to be scheduled and used in the first 30 days following the loss. Part-time employees may use up to 4 hours per loss to be scheduled and used within the 30 days following the loss. Fourth category, all employees are allowed to up to 4 hours of paid bereavement leave to attend the funeral of a coworker who worked in their branch or location. Fifth categories are all employees are allowed 1 day of bereavement leave when one of their household pets passes away to be used within 2 weeks of the loss. Employees are limited to 3 bereavement days per household pets in any 12-month period. MCPL reserves the right to request proof of an employee's qualification and need for bereavement leave. That's what we have before us. So
So the motion.
Yes.
The adoption of the amended board policy 342 bereavement. Any questions, comments?
did we need a second?
We
We need a second.
Yeah.
Yes, we need a second.
Questions, comments?
Need a second. We don't have a second yet, do we?
No, I thought you just said second.
No, I said we need a second.
Yeah, we need a second, sorry.
I thought we had one. Sorry.
Second.
Second.
Thank you.
I thought I heard a second too, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
We have a motion second.
The document says the annual cost for adding, I guess, but it's part-time and half-time, is 6,000 to 8,000. What is our annual cost for all employees? Do we have that?
Jennifer, I believe, has it.
For last year, it was $51,000, which is 0.21% of wages and salaries. And I can't speak, and I shared this with Gordon a little bit before the meeting. I can't speak to going out today and looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics employment report for the Kansas City area, that as a percent to wages to wages paid leave in our area, which is West North Central. So Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, that the average is 10.16% to wages. And the portion of that that's vacation is 5.28% to wages. And our dollar amount is 7.59% to wages last year. So we're spending 92.41% of our wages and salaries budget on people working, so we're spending a greater amount of our budget on people actually working than is average for private and public employers in our region, and definitely across the United States, because that's a little bit higher, which is 10.57% is the paid leave amount. And like I said, for us last year, we spent 7.59%. So if we convert the full amount that I'm estimating of $9,000, that would take those percentages to, for this particular benefit bereavement, that would take those percentages to 92.37%, because it's a 0.04% of salaries and wages. That would convert 0.04%. So we take that to 92.37. We would still be at 7.63% of what we spend on paid leave as a percent to wages, which is well under the average of our area and the average of the country. And looking at all of paid leave together is the best way to look at it, because every organization does it different. So some places just have straight PTO, and everything goes under PTO. And so, they may have a different way of breaking it out. Some places even holidays go under PTO. So putting it all together is a good way of looking at it, because we have, different buckets for different, for people to take off for different reasons. And so even if we're not, and that includes holiday pay, by the way. So even if we're not comparing ourselves to just other governments, that thing, we're still paying more money out for people to be present and working on average than other employers by a pretty significant amount. So that's not statistically.
So Jennifer, to summarize for those of us who have difficulty processing decimal points, we are above, below, or equal to the average.
We are spending less on paid leave by a good amount, so 2.5% about as a percent to wages. So we're spending more of our wage money on people working than is average across employers. And the BLS, we send statistics to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They get them from all kinds of businesses everywhere, varying sizes. So it is a pretty good snapshot. And the data that I looked at today is just from a few days ago. So
It's just a point of clarification. So the reason I asked the question is when we look at policy changes, we should understand the cost of those. because you can look at this in isolation and say, that's a lot of time. If you look at the cost, it's not in the aggregate, it's not material. Regarding your percentages, I don't know, and I'm not asking you to look. I would suspect that our part-time count probably has an impact on that ratio.
Yeah, this is also going to include, I mean, those wages, that's why the BLS is a good place to go, because it is going to include Walmart, it's going to include, you know, all of your retailers, your hospitality, your restaurants, which are, you know, almost always the bulk of them are part-time workers. I mean, we're down to where just a little more than half of our staff are part-time at this point, where it used to be about 2/3, even as high as, you know, around 70. Just north of 70%. So we have a lot fewer because of, I mean, what Joyce was talking about with higher paid people, fewer higher paid people, that's been, 15 plus years that's been what the board has wanted us to do. And that's the direction that we've gone. I mean, I am glad that the questions get asked, because it does have us, go and look and see how we are, how we are doing compared to other organizations. And it's hard for us to compare to other governments. We have a retail outlet model. And when we are, because a paid time off is for, staff to have some work-life balance or work-life harmony, and to make us an employer of choice. And we're not just competing against other governments. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Rita?
I have a question. That is, what other companies give bereavement leave for pets?
Lots. It's become a thing that, that people have. We don't pay for any pet insurance, but we give access to pet insurance now. And that sort of thing, because that's what is important to some of our staff, that some of these other benefits don't, benefit them. But this may be important to some staff that wouldn't benefit from a lot of our other benefits. So they don't get to take advantage of. So this is.
Can you name one? Can you name a company?
Can I name a company? And we don't usually do benefits to try to align with one particular company, but if we need to go out and do research about who has pet bereavement, then we can go look for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Online, is there any questions? Okay, if not, roll call. Yep.
Okay. Ms. Joyce Lombardo.
Yes.
Mr. Gordon Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Bob Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazio.
Aye.
Ms. Lori LeMunion. Dr. Yummy Pandolfi.
Yes.
Noel Stat.
Aye.
Ms. Rita Weesey. Abstain. Susan Wilson.
Yes.
Michelle Wyckoff.
Yes.
Ms. Marcy Gray.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Right.
I'm not able to get
Motion is passed, so
without somebody app. So the next one,
next one.
It's the vacation.
vacation sick leave,
Sick leave. Sick leave.
346, sick leave in the second reading. Hearing the- Okay, basically from our former policy, we're omitting, oh, thank you. All right. Our current policy will stay the same with the omission of 8 hours of paid sick leave per month and 4 hours of paid sick leave per month, replacing both those instances with the actual calculated hours of 0.0461 hours of paid sick leave paid per hour per paid hour. That is a tongue twister.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
And then So the motion is to recommend those changes. Basically, that change was basically just to help with calculating, moving to our new, is it bi-weekly or bi-monthly?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly system. Previously, staff graciously were paid monthly. That's the
Okay,
change.
we have a motion to recommend the full board the adoption of the amended board policy 346-6.
We have the motion, we just need the second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you. Gordon has a question.
Have a question?
So last meeting, I asked a question about terminated employees. Is that in the policy? What we pay? I mentioned that if I'm over 3 years, I get 50% of accumulated pay. If I'm under 3, I get 0. Is that in our policy somewhere?
It didn't appear, it wasn't in there. It had been in there, but it wasn't in the one that we put in the first reading, but it's in the second reading. Am I correct?
Didn't print that off, is it?
That's the one that I sent. I don't know, did that?
I looked this morning, so
Okay, so it's not the ones that are up there.
it looked to be the same one as posted last month.
Yeah, we were adding that.
Trying to make, are we looking at the complete policy or a partial?
That is a partial, but there was a version, I don't know. Yeah.
So, okay.
That I sent, I think, but it wasn't, I didn't send it today.
Send it to us,
But that is in our policy.
Yes, the policy, the phrase that's missing is, I apologize for that. I know that I didn't check that today. That was today. Upon termination of employment, an employee with at least 3 years of benefits eligible employment with MCPL will be paid for 50% of accumulated sick leave hours at the employee's current hourly equivalent rate.
Are there any other parts of the sick pay policy that you don't know about? Any questions? That's it.
That's the only part.
Are there any questions online?
Yes, this is Lori. I have a question. So for a terminated employee, is there a line that says what they would be able to be paid out, or is all of it forfeited? And is that mentioned?
What do you, I mean, for a terminated employee, it's 50%. That's in that line. That.
Okay, but so it's no matter what, is that correct?
If they've had 3 years of benefits eligible service. Yes.
Okay.
So I have another question now that you mentioned that. So since we're changing our policies, doesn't that in essence mean the first day of employment? If you're now adding part-time people to your.
We're not adding part-time people to sick leave. No, it's.
Okay, so it's full-time and half-time.
It's just.
So if somebody goes from full-time or from part-time becomes half-time, then that trigger date is the start of their half-time.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Online?
So for clarification, for when we go to vote, you'd be voting on what's here with that line added?
Yeah, if you give us a few seconds, Kelly,
Yeah.
can you upload that policy that Jennifer just sent?
Just want to make sure people understand exactly what they're voting on.
Yes, I can do that.
Exactly. Right.
All right, with the provision, we're adding that line in there.
If we're sending the correct version. And it should be in board docs and within the second here.
Okay, we have a motion and second, so take the roll call, Teresa.
Absolutely. Ms. Joycelyn Burgo,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Bob Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazzio,
Aye.
Ms. Lori Lemunion,
yes,
Dr. Yumi Pandolfi,
Aye.
Ms. Noel Step,
aye,
Ms. Rita Weesey. Aye. Dr. Susan Wilson,
Aye.
Ms. Michelle Whitehoff,
Aye.
Marcy Gray,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, motion passed.
Okay.
So Joycelyn,
Okay, we've got policy number 348. I'm not gonna read this word for word because it's all numbers. What we're doing is omitting when they talk about hours and minutes, and we're putting those to decimal equivalents to match our new system as before, and it's on board docs. You can see that all, that's the major change on that, basically to match our new biweekly system. That's all I have for that.
okay, so there's a motion to adopt this. Let's see, our little, oh, I can't even
The
remember.
little tiny print, yeah.
Yeah, recommend to the full board the adoption of
The
amended policy for 340 vacation leave.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Online, any discussion, questions? Lisa?
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon Cook, Mr. Bob Johnson,
Aye.
Marcy Lazzio,
Aye.
Ms. Lori Lemunion,
aye,
Yumi Pandolfi,
Aye.
Noel Step,
aye,
Mr. Ron, sorry. Ms. Rita Weesey, Dr. Susan Wilson, Ms. Michelle Whitehoff,
Yes.
Ms. Marcy Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, motion's carried. So I'm going to hand this over to Aaron.
All right. Okay, so up next is the North Oak easement. The easement document conveys a permanent easement to the city for the basin on our North Oak property. Easement allows the city access rights to inspect, maintain, and repair the basin if needed. While we're still responsible for maintenance, the city has the authority to step in if necessary. It's important to note that filing this easement is a condition of receiving the certificate of occupancy for the city for the North Oak project. So we're very close. That's one of the final hoops we have to jump through to get our permanent occupancy permit. So online with us is Steve Thompson and Sean Mallory from PMC and Jane Dunn respectively. You guys have any questions? They'd be happy to answer them. If not,
So my only question is, are we absorbing the cost we haven't had in the past? If they're maintaining it, I guess, did I hear you say the city is maintaining this? Or are we? And if something goes wrong, who's responsible for the cost of restoring?
Sean?
It's my understanding that the library the MCPL will have to best management practice. That's what the BMP is acronym for. Maintain it to the best of their ability. And if something were to fail and need repair, it would be the responsibility of MCPL. I don't have an estimate of yearly maintenance costs, but that's something we could talk to our civil engineer about and report back to you.
So exactly what what purpose does the easement fulfill other than to just say the city can, the city can come in and do something that we didn't, the library didn't, and failed to act, but.
That's the way I understand it.
My understanding is to inspect. Could you explain a little bit about what the basin is there for?
Is there a visual of this thing?
I can provide that to you, or I can send it to Aaron and he can distribute as he.
I mean, is there something online that we can, I thought there was a
We had an
architectural drawing online.
Oh, there it is. It's the last.
I thought it was the last page there, so.
Yeah, it's right there.
I didn't study that, but,
So Aaron, to answer your question, the function of it is in the event of a large rainstorm, rather than all of the surface water draining into the culvert to the south and potentially overloading that system. This is it's called a stormwater detention basin. So the water that gets into it, it will temporarily hold the water and then slowly release it back into the Kansas City, Missouri owned culvert to the south of the property, so as not to overload it, overfill it, stress it. It's basically underground. It will slowly. There's a structure to the south of the building that has a large plate in it that will let a certain amount of water, a calculated amount of water through, and slowly release the water to not overflow the existing system.
so does this feed into the river or does this feed into their sewer system?
It feeds into their sewer system.
So that's the reason.
That's correct.
I still don't understand where this thing is and I mean.
Underneath the parking lot.
Yeah, it's underneath the parking
It
lot.
looks like these large coils of sorts.
This is like a grill or a grate.
Imagine cylinders stacked side by side, right? Sean?
Yeah, that's correct. Basically half cylinders with gravel underneath, and then it's essentially wrapped in what, in layman's terms, like a pool liner, a very thick pool liner. So it's self-contained underneath, and then like they said, it's underneath the parking lot just in front of the building, and then you can access it from either a manhole that's located in the structure to the south, and there's also inspection viewports for each. So there's 3 of these large runs of these have half spheres, and then there's inspection ports at the end of each of them that you can pull the cap off of, do the inspection, ensure that there's no silt or dirt being trapped in there. And the city can come by and do their inspection as well.
So is the maintenance including having to go in and drain these, clean them out? Are we ripping apart the parking lot to do the maintenance, or is this? I guess I'm sorry to get into the weeds here, but since we're going to get into Riverside, but this is something new that we're finding out in the tail end here, and it seems rather significant. I mean, if this was holding up the occupancy permit, this seems rather significant. So I'm just trying to understand. Is this like a septic tank where it goes in and the water dries out or drains out or whatever? And then every 5-10 years, you have to go in and pump it out and clean it out and start from scratch. And to do that, we're not ripping up the parking lot. We're just doing that via some access manhole or otherwise.
That's correct. Yeah, I would say your normal maintenance would not involve ripping up the parking lot and exposing it. That would be if something, which I wouldn't even know what example to give you, but that would be if something catastrophic were to happen and somehow something got in there, silt, dirt, and clogged one of the lines up. That I would say that is not common. It would be, like you said, it would be every once in a while, if you, during an inspection, if you were to find that excess amount of silt has gotten in there that's affecting the performance of the basins, you could wash them out essentially.
Any other questions?
All right. Okay, on, so reconstruct the basin for our property, is that correct?
That's correct.
So again,
Only serving your property.
right, so what is Kansas City asking for?
They're asking for a BMP easement, a best management practice easement, essentially just granting them the ability to come on your property, perform inspections as they desire.
Inspect the basin?
Inspect the basins, that's correct. And that the library will, to the best of their ability, perform maintenance on it.
But I understand that because we're building that.
Should be minimal.
But Kansas City could disagree with our maintenance process.
There would be a potential for that. They would let you know through the proper channels.
Right, I assume that, but it's I'm a little unsure of that ability, but see what other people have to say.
Bob's comment brought into the question. So these BMPs, is our responsibility based on the BMPs that exist today, or are those subject to change? And then this easement gives them, the city, the authority to come in and impose new requirements on us 5 years down the road that weren't anticipated at the time of construction. And we have to spend a whole bunch more money to be in compliance with those BMPs.
I suppose that's always a possibility. We can loop it.
What's the legal aspect of it? Or is there one? Or you're telling me there is no? I mean, is there a precedent here? Is there statute? Are there city codes?
I am not sure on that. We can do some research with our civil engineer and get back to you.
How are we supposed to prove something we don't know whether it's static or it's permanent?
For many years, anytime you change the amount of runoff from your property, if you take a field and turn it into a parking lot, you've changed the aspect of how much water comes off how fast. The requirement for retention is decades old. Normally it's done as it is in Independence, is just a little depression in the area that allows the water to fill up, and it goes out at a calculated rate so that it doesn't change the runoff from your site above what it had been. On this site, when you put it underground, it means you don't have a place to put a depression or a retention pond. As far as maintenance is concerned, as it is in Independence, this depression has to be mowed and kept clean, and don't let materials block the outflow or anything else that would cause. It's like mowing your lawn. You just take care of what you have there to control the flow. We have underground retention basins in projects quite often.
So, Steve, if I'm hearing you, well, I'm going to rephrase what you said. There's a low risk of substantial costs over the life of this building.
Very low. Last experience would be the Lowe's Hotel. A large hole was dug, and these half round structures were placed under the lowest floor of the parking garage, and they just have to maintain it. They check it with periodically with the cameras, or somebody can crawl down in there just to make sure that it's not stuffed up with clods of anything that could flow through. It's a storm detention area. It's not nothing to do with sanitary, so it's just to keep the overflow from overwhelming the city's drainage.
And to that point, the inspection is done by someone of a qualified nature, an engineer or otherwise, is that correct? This is not library staff doing this.
Well, it's checking to see that there's nothing there. I don't know. The best management practices would specify how often that has to be done, but it wouldn't be too much more than just making sure the grass is mowed when it's.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Yummy. I wonder, do we even have much of a choice about this, or are there other options?
Our understanding is that if you want an occupancy permit, you're gonna have to grant the easement. We have a temporary occupancy permit right now. This is the last step.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of thinking, that we really don't have too much choice in this, I would think.
Again, my concern is some cost that was not anticipated we're faced with down the road. And it sounds like if we maintain this properly, that we shouldn't have that sort of an issue. At least that's what I believe Steve said.
That's correct.
So that was my biggest concern.
Any other questions?
Would you need a motion?
That's gonna be a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
So I need to read that, or is that on the board somewhere? What is the motion?
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the BMP best management practices for the purpose of drainage easement at the site of the MPCL North of property.
I second the motion. Any further discussion? Teresa?
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Bob Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazio,
Aye.
Ms. Lori Lemunyan,
Aye.
Dr. Yummy Pandolfi,
Aye.
Ms. Noel Steph,
Yes.
Ms. Rita Weiss,
Yes.
Dr. Susan Wilson, Ms. Michelle Wyckoff,
Aye.
Ms. Marcy Gray,
Aye.
Dr. Susan Wilson. Cody, is Dr. Wilson still on the line?
Yes, she is still online.
She's having trouble with her mute.
Looks like she's still having trouble with her mute.
So did we hear from Dr. Wilson?
Yeah. Dr. Wilson, are you there? You can come back to her, but the motion did carry, you know.
Okay, the motion carried. You,
All right.
hey, Aaron?
Okay, so next up is an encroachment agreement. In the library in Magellan. And the purpose for this is a portion of the land acquired for the Riverside branch is subject to an easement held by Magellan. It grants them certain rights of access and maintain their underground pipelines. An agreement is necessary to allow our construction of the parking lot, sidewalks, and other improvements. This one is a little bit more complicated, but nonetheless, there is a pipeline, a gas pipeline underneath and the perimeter of the library. And to maintain that pipeline, if it's needed, Magellan needs access. Steve, if you could maybe elaborate on this a little bit more. I will state that we've known about the existence of this pipeline since the property was transferred to the library. Its reference and the title transfer is a bit nondescript. And looking at it, I don't know if it is anything that I would have mentioned looking at it. But nonetheless, here we are. And we need to provide access to that pipeline. So Steve, do you have anything to add there?
Everybody has an easement in their property 10 feet from your curb or something where the city can come in and do work on, you're obligated to take care of it, but they can run pipelines and everything else in these easement areas. This is a pipeline that, as I understand it, runs from Oklahoma to Iowa. So all along the way, there's 100-foot wide swath of easement that people have to limit their use of any digging nearby, any building any structure on top of it, anything that would risk might disturb these pipelines. This is, I think it's 3 gas pipelines and some fiber optic, which was probably an old line that they've now pulled fiber optic through. But this is high pressure gasoline, I understand. So it could be really bad if somebody were to nick it or damage it. So this is just safety in mind, and it happens through everybody's farm and the rest of the way through Riverside and south and north. This is just an easement that is put there for public safety to protect these lines. They're labeled clearly and people know they're there and they're inspected frequently. The encroachment agreement kind of tells who has to do when you have to let them on. If they have to do anything, is pretty much they have to, if they feel they need to come on, you have to allow that. And they will periodically make sure you're not setting up light poles or putting a fence across it or disturbing it in any way that could disrupt this pipeline. Like I said, this is just one little section of it that has the similar agreements, the length of the pipeline.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just have a comment. I'm not going to speak from expertise because I'm not. I did speak to someone who has dealt with this, and the takeaway I had or got is that this encroachment has superior rates. So they can come in and tear things up if they need to. And I think my understanding, you got Steve, you can correct me, is that any repairs that are necessary are the cost of the library, other than what they would be responsible for, or the owner is responsible for as to the pipeline. So any surface replacement, repair is our cost.
Yes.
So the concern I had, and I mentioned this to Aaron, is that we're just finding this out in a transaction that was done a year ago. I think the original easement, if I read that correctly, dates to 1923. Is that right? I thought I saw the date. So I was a little surprised this wasn't mentioned last year when we were doing the Riverside transaction, that we're probably we're well into the construction phase, and now we find out there's a pipeline that needed to be dealt with. And oh, by the way, if you really had and again, this is my understanding, and it's not necessarily Missouri statutes would rule, and is my understanding, any other case history. But if we had to do something to the building, that's our cost. So again, I'm not speaking from expertise. This is just sort of what was relayed to me. So it's not without risk. But again, I mean, we're to the point where I don't know how you don't proceed here, but I think the board needs to be fully aware that this is not like the water drain up in North Oak. And secondly, I'm a little disappointed. I actually am very disappointed that we're just finding this out.
Steve, could you just give us a little bit of context here about how deep the pipeline is, and what sits on top of it? Because my understanding from our conversation was that it's basically just pavement and landscaping. Is that right?
It is, and we've made sure we don't have any light poles, and we have a restricted depth for the monument sign, which may yet be moved. I don't know. There are just some restrictions to digging anywhere near a high-pressure gasoline pipeline. As far as who, they can access it anytime they want. If they do damage, they should fix it, but it's the agreement, if you read through all the legalese, is definitely in Magellan's favor. But it's not an optional thing. They can prevent you from doing anything on top of this, and call it public safety. So they've had, everyone has signed this all the way the length of the pipeline.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, anyone online?
This is Noel. So you said that the document's in favor of Magellan. Is there any way to, I don't know, rewrite it so that there's a little more balance, or is that just not something that's done? I mean, we have no control. It's kind of like we just gotta sign, we've got to do it if we're gonna build a library there.
Right, so we have made edits to the agreement, but that only pertains to the indemnification clause. As Steve said, this agreement is standard, and everyone along the way has signed it. Again, I just want to assure the board, like the cost to the library for repairs, like if they need to access this pipeline, are in the scheme of things, modest. You're just basically making cosmetic repairs to the pavement and landscaping. We're not talking about demolishing structures or that sort of thing. So it's a small price to pay for the safety of the people who are occupying the building. I would much prefer that they get in there and make sure everything's okay than not. So I'm confident that this is to our benefit. So.
And I would agree.
Yes, Rita?
Question, do we have a schematic or floor plan of where these pipelines are?
Yeah, if you go on board docs, you can see all those documents have been, Cody, if you could pull up, I think it's Exhibit C.
Is this on the front of the property or the back side?
Yes, Aaron, let me get that pulled up.
Um,
Can you all see my screen now?
Yes.
Yep.
So Steve, could you direct us to, is this the right one or should I be looking at?
Right there's big warning pointing right there.
You can
That
see
looks
it.
like the parking lot for the former Quick Trip.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
There it is.
There it
So
is.
it's the parking lot, it's the parking lot.
Yes, it runs underneath the parking lot island, a little bit of paving, and yeah, it's, I don't know if anybody shaded it, but you can kind of see the 100-foot wide spot that runs through the parking area and out the east side of the site. Yeah,
Steve, the building is not within the easement area? Or
it is not.
It's not. Okay, so the risk is the parking lot and sidewalks and.
Yeah, even the parking signs or the no parking here or any signpost you put in there is restricted in its depth.
Right.
So there's no way to disturb these pipes.
Yeah.
So in the placement, it would not require us cutting off part of the building.
No. The design has kept away from that.
Right, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So any other questions or discussions? So Cody, oh, go ahead.
So this is Lori, and and I just don't know, but do we have to have any special insurance? Because that would be like in our parking lot, since they're high pressure lines that could, I don't know if they could explode or if something would happen and it would injure, would our insurance cover somebody, like if there was an accident from those lines?
So there is reference to insurance, and there's a minimum amount required. And it's my understanding that we exceed that amount. If I'm mistaken. Juan?
Yes, we checked our insurance agent, and he believes we can meet the requirement.
So does that mean the policy has to be changed or the current policy?
Current policy.
Current policy covers it.
That answer your question, Noel?
This is Lori, but yes, it did.
Okay. All right, so you want to read that, Aaron? Could I? Okay, I'll read the 7.7 Riverside encroachment. Approval of motion to allow the MCPL library director to enter into an encroachment agreement with Magellan Pipeline Company at the site of the Riverside property. I move that we accept this and allow Aaron to enter into the encroachment agreement with Magellan.
A second.
Any further discussion? Teresa?
Ms. Joycelyn Burgo? Yes. Mr. Gordon Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Bob Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Michael Lazio?
Aye.
Ms. Lori Lemunion?
Yes.
Dr. Yumi Pandolfi?
Aye.
Ms. Noel Stepp?
Aye.
Ms. Rita Reese?
Aye.
Dr. Susan Wilson? Ms. Michelle Wyckoff?
Aye.
Ms. Marcy Gregg?
Aye.
Okay.
Dr. Susan Wilson? Cody's Dr. Wilson still on the line. but-
Hand wave.
Yes, Teresa, she's still on the line. I've messaged her, but I also haven't gotten a response either.
She just texted me. Okay, she's having a problem with her mute, but you all.
Got it.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries.
All right, motion carries.
All right.
All right, Aaron.
Next up is announcements, and the only real announcement we need to make is that on September 4th, all Mid-Continent Public Library locations will be closed in honor of Labor Day. All right.
With that, we're going to move back to item 4.2, visitors' comments. And I believe we have two visitors signed up to comment, Daniel Purdom and Cynthia Peterson. Thank you all for being patient and bearing with us. So, Daniel?
We'll go first. Thank you. I'll be brief. When this board cut the funding for our libraries by reducing the levy, which I might remind you was in spite of the overwhelming support of voters in all three of our counties to increase library funding, it was suggested by some members of this board that it would have no effect on our library's activities, that we could save the money without paying the price. Sadly, those folks were wrong. The employees and the staff of Mid-Continent Public Library are doing everything in their power to minimize the impact of the cuts, but they cannot hold back the tide indefinitely. I'm speaking today because I was struck last month when Ms. McDonald presented on the summer library program, a core program of our libraries. And by the way, it's a great program. I donated money this year to support that program. I believe in it. But while the board was congratulating itself on the fine programming being offered, not one member commented on the fact that in her report, it said that the 2023 prize book numbers were lower due to an inability for the summer library program budget to keep pace with book price increases. That's right. Because of your actions on the budget, children in our communities receive fewer books this summer than last. We're seeing a degradation of services all across the Mid-Continent system, with new and remodeled libraries opening and patrons returning from our libraries after the pandemic. Our employee count is down about 20%, from where we were in the pre-pandemic times. Yet pages and other part-time staff who are critical to keeping our libraries organized and functioning have seen their hours slashed and open positions go unfilled. Again, as a result of the budget. In addition to reductions of staff, those who remain have found fewer resources to work with. Electronic resources budget was reduced, so software programs like the Gale courses were discontinued, leaving fewer educational support options available to entrepreneurs and small business owners in our communities because of your action on the budget. Finally, we as taxpayers are watching you use library funds to make interest payments to banks to cover operating shortfalls and cash flow issues. Money that should be used for additional books or magazines, adequate staffing, or software is instead being paid to banks because of this board's decision to cut the levy and reduce revenues, and frankly, none of us asked for that. As a board, you're failing us in our libraries. My plea is the same as always. Please do your jobs. Please be better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purdom.
Hello, I'm Cindy. I'm a homeowner for over 25 years in Liberty. On Monday, August 7th, my Courier Tribune tweeted, Jeremy Wilmoth is now Mid-Continent Public Library System's Chief Financial Officer. Included in the tweet press release were quotes from our CEO and the newly hired CFO. Well, let's go back in time to Thursday, July 28th. Mr. Wilmoth posted on his personal Facebook page announcing his exciting news of accepting MCPL's offer to be their first ever Chief Financial Officer. I searched, but I cannot verify that Mr. Wilmoth is a CPA. With 2+ years of questions and concerns from some board members about accounting and spending, shouldn't the CFO have a CPA? CPAs are held to the highest ethical standards. Kansas City Public Library CFO has a CPA. Why hasn't MCPL made any public announcements about this hire to the media outside of that tweet, or to their patrons, or to the announcements today? Why the secrecy? My next subject. During the July 12, 2023 Personnel Committee meeting, Platte County Board member Rita Weesey once again showed us her religious, political, or social beliefs. While discussing the addition of Juneteenth as a paid and closed holiday, Mrs. Weesey said, it's not an extra holiday in historical dimensions, so I would have a very difficult time constitutionally approving it. Why are we doing this when we already have the Emancipation Proclamation that made all the Blacks, all the slaves? County member Michelle Wyckoff made some comments and Mrs. Weiss came back to the mic and said, I hear you, but I still think it's a double holiday. We have the 4th of July, don't we, for our freedom, for everybody, or do the Blacks not enter into the 4th of July? Conservative board members are continually attempting to steer operations and policies to reflect their own personal, political, and social beliefs. I see what's happening and I will speak out. If you live in Platte County, please contact your Platte County Commissioner. They are responsible for appointing these board members. Earlier, my last point, since the board agenda got switched around, I said there will be a board vote about the lump sum payments to employees. For years, all employees received this small payment, but in 2022, part-time staff were removed without notice. Over 50% of MCPL staff are part-time. Leadership talks of their importance, but doesn't act upon it. Your part-time employees are your workhorses. We provide the bulk of MCPL's face-to-face customer services. They also deserve part PTO. It could be prorated for years of service. Yes, part-time employees deserve benefits. They are talented, trusted, and they're trained employees. Many part-time employees have associate's or bachelor's degrees. Ask those part-time employees questions. Listen to them. Act upon their concerns. Reward their loyalty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate you being here. So move on to trustees' comments. Is there any?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So during the meeting, I wanted to check my Robert's Rules of Order. But I'm going back to what a majority vote is on this body. Now you're going to talk to our attorney. That's fine.
And Bob, we did find the board policy that relates to what, and would you like for me to read that?
Yeah, because all I have now is Robert's Rules of Order. And I just
Sure. I can read it.
Can you? Okay, go ahead.
Section 4 on quorum. Majority of the full Mid-Continent Public Library Board of Trustees shall constitute a quorum. The affirmative vote of a majority of the full Board of Trustees shall be required to enter into any contract, employ or dismiss the chief administrative officer of the district, effect a merger or consolidation, or approve or amend the annual budget. So,
okay. Go ahead, Dana.
Our reading of that is that a majority is a quorum. Except for, I mean, it can pass essentially everything except for the specific items listed.
Well, so you're saying to me that a policy, like policy 340, and I don't care about the issue. I'm looking for precedent.
Okay.
Doesn't require a majority of the entire membership.
Correct.
Well, if we follow Robert's Rules of Order, and I know I've said this earlier, and it's what we generally follow it. So are we or are we not following Robert's Rules of Order? Because if you look at Robert's Rules of Order, and I'll be glad to visit with our attorney also, it says a vote of the majority of the entire membership, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I happen to think policies require, my view is it requires a majority of the appointed body. But I guess the policy you two are reading to me doesn't address that. So
yeah,
I
do want to add to that. I think when we talk to Bill, he'll probably mention the first and second readings that we also attach to our policies. But I do agree with you.
No, I have no problem with first reading, which is where you can debate, amend. Second reading is like a final vote, it's an up or down vote, but people still can.
Yeah.
But and the only reason I'm going to continue with this is because if this is our precedent, then for some future issue, whether it has to deal with what do you do with tax levies, you're telling me now that if people want to abstain, you could now do this with less than a majority. And so, this really becomes on close vote issues. You're going to have less than a majority of the entire membership making this majority decision. So I'll be glad to hear what our attorney has to say. And then I think we ought to adopt a policy that's more identifies what's in Robert's Rules of Order, which is it's a majority of the entire membership. That's all I have. And I won't let that drop because this is important to me out of principle. We either represent a majority or we don't. And I think it needs to be 7 votes to adopt anything. So,
any other trustees' comments?
I would like to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, online.
Okay, yeah, this is Yummy. I just wanted to say, yeah, I see where Bob is coming from, and that, I think that we do need to be just clearing up ambiguities in our policy as we find them. So I think things like this, if we could just, make a record of it and then go back and we do need to constantly clean up policies when we find something like this that has the ambiguity.
Okay, I would like to welcome Marcy Gray to the board. Looking forward to serving with you. I served with your grandpa. Fine man and wonderful. Great asset too. So I expect no less. Thank you. Welcome to the board.
Thank you. Well, if I could make a comment then in response to that, I'm very pleased to be here. I'm a lifelong resident of Independence. North Branch has been my home branch as long as I can remember. Some of those memories do go back to card catalogs and the smell of the building, which used to be a store and that. So it's very exciting to me to be a part of this board and to be part of something that functions to serve our community so strongly. My father-in-law, as you mentioned, was a member of the board for about 20 years. Vic had nothing but wonderful things to say about Mid-Continent Library System and that we are a national model. And I've always been proud to have this headquartered here in Independence. I served Independence on the city council for about 10 years. And prior to that, Lands Planning Commission. It's been very important to me that the library system stays strong and healthy. And so I'm just happy to be here. Eager to work with each one of you. I hope to catch a cup of coffee with everybody at some point in the next several months and get to know each of the representatives of the various different counties. So thank you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All